Hello and welcome to the second day of the Business of Data Festival. We so hope you are enjoying your day so far. Welcome to the regional afternoon sessions, which are live. So we do hope you're going to enjoy them, and we do hope you're going to participate with asking your brilliant questions. And also feel free to drop in a few thoughts of your own into the chat. You can see the question tab on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, to start, as we mean to go on with absolute excellence, it is my pleasure to welcome to the virtual stage Wendy Gilbert, who's the Deputy Director of Enterprise BI for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who's going to tell us a story of 1,000 Excel sheets. Wendy, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. Thanks for the introduction. As Catherine mentioned, I'm Wendy Gilbert. I'm the Deputy Director for Enterprise BI at the Gates Foundation. I'm based out of Seattle. My preferred pronouns are she and her. As I was getting ready for this presentation, I had a few offline conversations with folks about our love-hate relationship with Excel and with spreadsheets. The focus of the session today, as Catherine mentioned, is on centralizing capabilities and that story of 1,000 spreadsheets. But the story actually could be any tool, whether it's Excel or another BI tool. The challenges are often the same. Also wanted to call out that it's no offense meant to Excel. It's a fantastic tool. I use it every day, and it has lots of great purposes. Where we get into challenges is when you have duplication across teams, where you're wasting energy and effort and building up that lack of trust within the reporting. So that'll be my big focus, is like the case for centralization, why you might want to do it, some of the challenges that are inherent in becoming in centralizing these solutions. And then a little bit about what is the path to centralization. I'll be using some examples from the foundation and the work that we're doing here, but it's primarily about, my focus is really around centralizing capabilities in general. Excellent. All right, so let me get started. There's a case for centralization. As was mentioned in the description for this session, the sheer number of Excel spreadsheets in an organization can be enough to make us cringe. And there are lots of really good reasons to centralize. But what does it mean to be centralized? If we think about what does centralization even mean? I've worked for many companies. I was with Expedia Group before I came to the foundation. And at Expedia, as well as at the foundation, we had a tendency to go back and forth between centralizing and decentralizing, or where it became a habit to decentralize and we had to rein in and pull everyone together. We also, within Expedia Group, there's a lot of different brands within the company. And so when you talk about centralizing, do you mean centralizing for the group, centralizing within the brand, centralizing within a business unit? And I would say yes to all of those. Those are all examples of centralization to me, and where the focus is where you're not having individuals building their own solutions, unless that's the right solution, because sometimes it is. So one of the benefits that you get from centralization is that efficiency and cost savings. So in the case of Excel, when you do have hundreds of spreadsheets and you have individuals building their own thing. And when they're building their own thing, that means they're spending time, they're spending effort to do that. And so efficiency, where instead of having 20 people building 20 solutions, you can have one team building one solution that 20 people can use. You also get into cost savings, where a lot of times you may have a licensing agreement that's central and organization-wide, but individuals are going out and buying their own licenses because they either aren't aware of a central solution or think that it would be too time-consuming to adopt it. Increased productivity is also a big benefit for centralization, in that you want to have that, the people that are building these spreadsheets, and again, it's not necessarily just spreadsheets, it could be Tableau reports, it could be Power BI reports, it could be data solutions. But the people that are doing these things are doing them in addition to their day jobs, and this is not necessarily their skill set. So if you can take some of that work off of them and put it into a central team, you free up the people that are doing those building those solutions to work on the things that are more of their normal focus. Consistency is a big one. We love our data governance within data and BI teams. If you have 100 different spreadsheets that are doing similar things, the odds are that somebody called their buddy and the Fred in another team who knew a guy and got the data from them. And they built out a spreadsheet. On another team, you may have a similar situation where somebody called a friend who called a friend, or were able to get the data from a central solution and then did their own calculations on top. But what you wind up in the end result is you may have 100 spreadsheets that are saying they're doing the same thing, but when you look at the number of transactions that they're reporting, they don't match across the reports. So consistency across the solutions can be a challenge when you don't have a more centralized team doing the work. You also get improved products. My team is, I have a few different teams that are focusing on BI, and they're experts in BI. They're experts in the tools that they use. They are part of the Voice of the Customer program at Microsoft. We stay on top of new tools and new techniques that are coming out. We keep our knowledge current. We're also maintaining our systems and building our, and watching access and security. There's a lot of things that you get where you will have an improved product because the team, this is what they do. We also have a team of data product people. If you treat data as a product, so BI is a product, but data is a product as well. We have data product owners whose entire focus is understanding the definitions of the data model, how the data is going to be used, how it all fits together, and building those solutions that support that. And what that means is if one team builds a report, it's going to match to another team's report, even when they're different product owners and different delivery teams. So the products are likely to be better. Another added piece on the improved quality is just quality assurance. We have teams of testers that are going to be supporting that work, that are going to be testing and making sure that the data is good and that the UI is doing what you want it to. And last but not least, of course, privacy and security, very, very important aspects. If you're building your own solution, especially if it's in Excel or any tool, where you're storing it, how you're delivering it to your end users, who's accessing it, all of that is up to you to manage. And if you don't have experience with the Global Data Protection Regulations or the California Consumer Privacy Act or the different privacy regulations, you may not be deleting the data as you're expected to or locking it down to where only certain people can have access. So one of the benefits of a centralized team is they're going to know those rules, those regulations, and be able to protect those. All right. So that being said, not everything should be centralized. There's a good case for not centralizing some work. As I mentioned, Excel can be a valuable tool, but that doesn't mean that all problems so Excel can be a valuable tool. There are times that Excel is a good solution for the problem that you're trying to solve. Sometimes even centralizing a solution results in teams using Excel. We actually support Excel as an enterprise reporting tool for a lot of self-service use cases at the foundation. And the key to that for us is that it's centralized data, but you can self-serve using Excel to that centralized data. There are times when the problem doesn't make sense to solve centrally. If it's a one-time need or ad hoc analysis, if it's a very narrow use case, it may not be a central solution. As I mentioned before, I use Excel on a regular basis, and there are needs that are specific to me that wouldn't make sense to centralize. That folds into the third point on the cost may not justify the value. One of the program managers at the foundation has a quote that we use all the time of, is the juice worth the squeeze, right? Is it worth it? And there may be times when you have to look into the effort that it's going to take to centralize. If you have 10 people building 10 spreadsheets, but it's only taking them an hour a month, you're going to have to work, it's going to take you a long time to recuperate your ROI for that effort if you're trying to centralize. But I would say perhaps the biggest reason that you may not want to centralize in the question of the hundreds of spreadsheets example is that you may not be ready. We've had a couple of instances at the foundation where we've tried to centralize, or we have had hundreds of spreadsheets and tried to centralize those down to a single solution. One of the examples was very successful, and one of those examples was not ready. So in the first one, we went through and our business owners and product owners met with our users. They understood the different use cases. They looked at lots of those spreadsheets, trying to understand how they were used, came to a consensus of, yes, we think we can solve this with one single enterprise solution. We did a proof of concept, tested it out, worked on it with the users, and said, yes, we can solve this. And we're in the process now of building out that solution. Had another situation, similar problem, hundreds of spreadsheets with different program teams using them. Did the same process, went out, interviewed the stakeholders, tried to understand what the users were doing, looked at their current processes, and the end result of that one was we can't agree on a single consensus solution. And if you can't agree on a single solution, it's very difficult to build it centrally. So the agreement we have with them right now is we'll wait. We'll wait until we can come back and see about an agreement for a central solution. And in the meantime, we'll support it with self-service and try to do what we can to support their data needs while they build their own reporting. So that sometimes you're not ready, and sometimes the business is not ready. All right. Before you get on the path to centralization, I think it's really important to ask why you're not already there. And that's something that I ask myself on a regular basis across all of these areas. These are things near and dear to my heart, both in my current situation and in previous roles. Lack of business sponsorship can be a challenge. So if you need to be able, this can't be treated as an IT only problem. If you don't have business sponsorship encouraging people to get off of their spreadsheets, it's going to be really difficult to get their time and energy to have them involved. Mark Sussman is the CEO for the Gates Foundation. And I think it was in 2020 that Mark introduced 3 organizational principles for us. The first one is impact first, and that's measured in how our programmatic goals, by how we save lives and how we improve lives. That is underpinned by a principle of high integrity. And thirdly is a thinking and acting as one global foundation. And historically, the foundation was behaving more as individual programs that work together. Now with this new directive from Mark and these new principles, it was one global foundation. And with that drive to one global foundation, kind of gave us that support that we needed to be able to drive these centralization efforts that we're going through. Without it, you're asking people to get away from their day jobs where they're very busy. They've got these spreadsheets or these other solutions they're very happy with, even if it takes time and energy. They understand them, they trust them, they know where they came from. So I would say that business sponsorship, if you don't have it, is going to be holding you back. I mentioned the consensus on a common solution, that if you can't get to consensus for a common solution, that's going to be a big challenge. And the 2 examples that we had at the foundation. Another reason is that your current solutions may miss the mark. You may have tried to centralize, but not been able to succeed. We had this problem several times when I was at Expedia. The first time that I was there on 2 different stints of time. The first time I was there, I worked for Agencia, and we had an external reporting offering that supported our travel managers. We had enterprise solutions, so travel manager could log into our portal, they could pull up reports. They were standard reports for air, for hotel, for car, for all of their spend. And it really gave them good insights into what they were doing. But what they would do is run these amazing enterprise reports, extract them to Excel, and then edit them based on whatever they needed. So they may want to load it into their expense system. They may be using it for their CEO who wants to see it in a certain format. So every time we would deliver them on a scheduled basis, but they would download them, rearrange them, and then share them out. So we were asked to build a separate solution or an additional solution to this that allowed them to customize the end result to fit their needs. And so we supplemented our standard enterprise reports with a self-service guided tool that let them organize their filters and their columns and in the way that they wanted, so that they still 9 times out of 10 downloaded to Excel. But once they got it to Excel, they didn't need all that additional manual effort. So where our current solution, the previous standard solution, missed the mark was in that providing additional supplemental self-service opportunities where the enterprise solution can't do what you need. So a lot of times we assume that we can build build an enterprise solution that's going to replace all these spreadsheets, but it's very challenging to get 100% of those use cases met without some kind of supplemental self-service capability. Very obvious one, the data may not exist. If the data doesn't exist, possibly, and you see this quite a bit, where people are pulling data from systems, adding on to it manually, editing it to make their spreadsheets align and do what they want them to do. As an enterprise solution, that's not necessarily an option and could stop you from moving forward. Haroon had mentioned in one of the previous sessions today this lack of trust. And I think this is also one where when you lose trust in the central systems, then people no longer want to work with you. So if they've had challenges in the past, it's hard to get them to come back. Another big challenge is the data teams just being overloaded, it taking too long. Oh, we get this a lot. I can build a report in 3 hours. Why does it take you 2 weeks to build it? And being able to explain that. Why is it that it takes us longer? Does it always take us longer? And in a lot of cases, no. If it's an ad hoc simple solution, we can build it quickly. If it's a more involved consolidation of 100 spreadsheets, it's going to take time. There's potentially higher upfront costs, and initial deployment could be slower. If we don't already have an established data and BI team, we may be building that up. We have to better understand your use cases. In the example I mentioned at the foundation, where we are building a central solution, getting those requirements, getting to consensus, building the proof of concept, that all took time. And so it's not going to be a quick solution in the end, but it will be a really good solution in the end. We also have competition for resources. If they're using a central solution, so for us, we prioritize our work with our business owners and product owners. And if someone needs a report, depending on how big or how little it is, it may be challenging for them to get in the queue. If it's a very simple one-off report, they'll come in through our intake process, and we have a team that supports that. If it's a larger piece of work, we're going to want them to work with our product owners to establish the solution and get that into the queue, which is conflicting with whatever else the product owners already have established. So it can be a perception of time. And then probably the biggest one, I think, when it comes to adoption of a central solution is that lack of change management and awareness and training. How many times have you gotten requests from users who wanted a report that already exists and they just didn't know it? Or a solution that already exists and they just didn't know it? Or you roll out a new central solution and nobody's using it because they're too busy. And it takes time and energy and change management efforts to introduce the new solutions, get people used to the idea, get them off of their existing ones and over to the new. And that's not an easy or quick process to go through. Okay. All right. And then last but not least, the path to centralization. So what do you do to get there? Most of this I've already talked about in the previous slides as far as what the effort is that you need. And I summarized some of the big ones. If we skip to the last one first, I think it kind of goes without saying, but probably important to add, that when it comes to a central solution, you obviously have to have a team to build the products. So delivery, you need data, you need tools, you need engineers, quality assurance analysts to build those solutions. You may already have them, but users aren't adopting them, or they may not exist. As I mentioned in the beginning, that top-down directive is so critically important and very difficult to have if you don't have an involved stakeholder already. So for one of the efforts that has come our way in the last few months, we're trying to establish who is that business and IT collaboration, who is going to be representing the work on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, and working with the delivery team to understand the requirements. If we don't have a dedicated business owner, not 100% of the time, but they need to be heavily involved, it's difficult to build a solution. And it's difficult to get adoption of that solution. I mentioned earlier that this can't be an IT-driven problem or IT-driven solution. You really need that business ownership and engagement. We also need, sorry, one second. We also need that the governance structure, planning, and intake process, and it needs to be transparent and accessible. One of the challenges, as discussed in the why you might not have centralization already, is that people may not feel that you're adequately appropriately prioritizing their work. If they don't know where they are in the queue, if they don't understand the process, they get disgruntled and start building things on their own. And it can be solved very simply. I found most users are very understanding when they see what's ahead of them in the queue, that they likely will agree with you that these are more higher priority work, but they need to be able to see what that queue is and where they sit in it. I mentioned before the strategy for supporting supplemental self-service. Again, building that single enterprise solution is not going to solve the problem. It needs to have some support around the edges. One of my favorite quotes from a No Fluff Just Stuff conference here in Seattle many years ago was discipline at the core and freedom around the edges. And that stuck with me because I think it really applies here. It applies a lot of places, actually. Change management and training, I mentioned before, really important aspects of this journey. We have a dedicated change manager had a dedicated change manager who was working with us to help users adopt the products that we're building. Now we've disseminated that change management responsibility within the team, but it is a well-recognized, understood need. I myself went through change management training a few weeks ago and learned a lot. There's a lot to it. Something we don't do nearly as much as we could, it's something we're doubling down on now, is that advertising of its successes. So if you want people to start using central solutions, you need that visibility and a little bit of buzz so that people know that it's happening, that it's there, that you're there for them. You also, once a product is delivered, you've got to have that usage tracking management so that you can manage adoption. You built it and nobody's using it, then you've only finished delivery, you haven't actually delivered the product. And then, as I mentioned, last but not least, there's the data tools, all of the things that you need to have in order to support, to actually build these products. Great. I think I might, that's the main gist. And for the focus of my presentation, do we have any questions?
Oh, wow, Wendy, I mean, what a fantastic session there. Now, I don't believe we've had any questions come through, which means that I've got green space to ask my own. For you, when it comes to these challenges, what's the kind of best piece of advice that you can give our audience members today? I think sometimes it can feel, as you've said it yourself, it can feel quite overwhelming at times. So where's the best place to kind of begin from for our audience members if they're, trying to tackle this?
I think it's a great question. Catherine always has the best questions. I participate in the executive women panel with her on a monthly basis as well, and it's really great to have that feedback. I would say that it's so much about focusing on the business value, and sometimes we forget that it's working with our business owners and our product owners to understand the problems that we're trying to solve. And really that focus of why isn't it happening already? If you don't know why you haven't centralized already, it's hard to centralize. So is there a lack of trust? Is there a problem within the industry, within the company? Do you not have executives buy-in? Do you not have support? Do you actually understand the problem that's being solved? Because a lot of times the answer to that is no. In some of the examples that I mentioned for us, we thought we knew the problem. And after talking to people and trying to understand the requirements and trying to reconcile across the different teams, realized that we didn't actually know, in one of the examples, we didn't actually know what they were trying to accomplish. And we were working with them to help them understand what they were trying to accomplish. And then working backward, okay, we've got what you're trying to accomplish. Does the data exist? I'm full of quotes today, but one of my favorite quotes from a friend of mine is metrics that don't matter on data that doesn't exist. Right? You can't do that. You can't, if the data doesn't exist to support it, then the next effort is likely to work with your source systems and your teams to get that data. Which, sorry, Catherine, one of the examples I mentioned too, we did actually have to do that. So we are implementing a full centralized solution, but we had to work with one of our source systems to actually build an application to capture the data before we could centralize the reporting.
Amazing. Well, Wendy, thank you so very much for joining us today. I really enjoyed that presentation.
Thank you for the time.
Wow. Just as Wendy mentioned there, I was writing down in my notes about advertising success, which gives me a really nice segue into doing a quick announcement that we do still have a few days left should you wish to nominate yourself, a peer, your organization, a team. We have 13 categories to choose from, so you can certainly advertise some success for our North American Business of Data Awards. Across the globe, we have 30 judges as part of our Global Advisory Board who will be very excited to read through all of the nominations that have come in. And goodness me, don't they have a job on their hand, because we've already received so very many. You can find the link around the platform to click in. There's a nomination guide which will give you all the details. There is a $99 fee per nomination, but that goes directly to charity. It goes to Feeding America, which is a charity that we've supported here at Crinium for a number of years now. So just one nomination can provide up to 990 meals, which is just fantastic. And we're so, so glad to be supporting it. So just as Wendy was saying in her presentation there about advertising your success and really wearing that success, why not get that external validation, bring it into your organization and show off how amazing you are in the community. So you've got that to be doing alongside watching the rest of the content here at the Business of Data Festival. Now, up next, we will be joined by a brilliant thought leader who is going to showcase the wealth of knowledge data leaders have and how they can benefit from transferable knowledge from industry to industry. We'll see you in a moment.